Hi, my name's Lou, and today I'm going to be reading the internet for you. Why? Well, why not? And today's what is going to be a forum. That's right, I'm back to doing forums. And it's a forum that goes by the name of Ebaum Nation Forum. Now, Ebaum Nation is a spin-off, I'm assuming, of the Ebaum's World website. And Ebaum's World website is a website of funny clips and videos and pictures and prank audio and things like that. So, if you're into that sort of thing, you probably go there. But you may not have known that Ebaum Nation has a forum, and so I'm going to read from it for you. And the forum has a big section of general discussion, which is people talking about movies and drugs and blah, 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 sports cars, things like that. And there's a main forum and soundboards and pranks. Anyway, and there's porn and things, if you're into that sort of thing. But there is an everything and nothing subforum, and as always, that's a great place to find weird stuff. I went searching in there, and I'm going to read to you from stuff in there. And maybe elsewhere, but for now, just there. We'll see how it goes. So the first thing we're reading in the Everything and Nothing subforum is a thread started by Ebaum Nation member Citizen, who writes in a thread he entitled, "Post your funny bullying stories." And it goes like this. My brothers and I were always moving, and we were always the new kids in school. One time in elementary school, this kid was just riding my brother and I nonstop, face-washing us as we waited for the bus, tossing our lunches over this huge hill into the river below. One day while waiting, the bus stop kid walks over the hill and starts pissing into the snow below. My brother looks at me, then bolts across the road and over the hill into a flying kicked connection with this kid. The bully lands face down in his own piss, then cartwheels down the hill with his sweatpants at half-mast, holding his piss dick as urinating all over himself. And Yusiki writes, "Fucking LOL at piss cartwheels. The thought of someone rolling down a hill pissing the whole way." And the truth adds, "Cracks knuckles." I've posted these many times before, but it's always good to share a tale or two. There was, of course, the time when I was about 14 or something. A gang of guys grabbed me when school finished and put me on the school bus. Literally 6 or 7 dudes picked me up and carried me onto the bus. Bearing in mind that I was one of the smallest, skinniest kids in my year/grade and didn't have any sort of growth spurt until I was like 16. Well, they put me on the bus and stood at the door so I couldn't get off. I explained to the bus driver that I lived a 15-minute walk away and didn't even have a bus pass, therefore legally I shouldn't even be allowed on the bus. He told me he didn't want any trouble and demanded I sit down. I pleaded with him to stop the bus a minute or so away so I could get off. He did not. The nearest stop was over 2 miles away. I got off and had a 45-minute walk home uphill. I was so late when I got home that I was grounded. I can't remember how old I was, maybe 13, and I rode my bike to school for the first time. It was a kick-ass bike that I'd gotten for Christmas, and I wanted to show it off, I guess. Within 1 hour of chaining it up at the school bike shed, the wheels had been kicked in and someone had written "prick" with a Tipp-Ex on the seat. I was then grounded because I hadn't told my parents I was riding my bike to school, and they wouldn't have let me if they had known. One time I was walking home and minding my own business, and the school bus went past, and a perfectly aimed sandwich flew out of the top window and hit me on the shoulder. Obviously, it exploded on impact, covering me and the people near me with mayo, tomato, and other such sauces. I was then called a cunt by the people walking near me because it was my fault as a target that they had caught the collateral damage. I didn't even get mad though, because to be fair, it was an amazing shot. The first and only time I ever took a shit in high school, I was 14 or 15. I settled in for a good dump when 2 guys walked into the toilets, noticed I was shitting, proceeded to soak an entire toilet paper roll with water, kicked open the stall door, and threw it on my lap. Luckily, camera phones weren't around in those days, or I would have never lived that one down. But yeah, I was known as Shitter Boy for a couple of years after that. A new kid joined school, and he was a bit weird. He was still into Pokemon cards and was asking around if anyone had some he could buy. I told him I had a couple hundred, and he could have them all for 10 pounds or something. We agreed, and I brought them in the next day. Well, my backpack was full of the cards, and one of my regular bullies happened to give me a kicking that day. He grabbed me by the backpack, threw me to the floor, ripping my bag open in the process. Pokemon cards flew all over the playground, and when I asked the new kid to confirm he was buying them from me, he said he didn't know what I was talking about. He later became one of the most popular guys in school. I was known as Pokemon Master for a couple of years after that one. Finally, when I was maybe 16, I was walking home and a guy who hated me started some shit. He had about 12 or 13 of his massive friends with him and told me that if I fought back, they'd all jump in. I called him a wuss, and he proceeded to kick the shit out of me for a good 10 minutes. LOL. Cars slowed down and people shouted, "Stop it!" from their windows. Anyway, the next day at school, the head of year wanted to know what happened, but obviously nobody saw anything, so the guy got away with it. In a hilarious twist, that kid is now in prison for stabbing someone, so I guess he got his just desserts. Well, that'll do for now. I assure you this is all true. I was a massive loser in school. Still a bit of a cunt now, but I can laugh about all the high school shit now. And the truth adds, high school is the least fucking important part of life. It's one giant popularity contest where the bigger an asshole you are, the easier you'll have it. As soon as these idiots enter the real world and realize that you actually have to work and not fuck around, or you'll not eat or have a roof over your head, then they grow up. For those of us who weren't part of that cunt crowd, it's much less of a shock to the system when you leave school, because you've already spent years doing shit for yourself. In before LOL, you're wrong. You enjoy myself writes. While I totally agree with what you're saying, I think I should make it clear I was tormented in every grade until high school. It all ended in high school when I started playing football. I had played before, but no one gave a shit about middle school teams. Football accelerated my growth into one of the most popular kids in school. I went from being a loser in middle school to knowing pretty much everyone in high school. I had an amazing experience in high school. And J. Elohim writes, you forgot the second key to success at high school for girls. Big tits plus easy equals well-liked by the cunts, and generally cunts themselves actually. And now probably 2 kids and on the dole for being fat and looking awful. And Daysvats adds, truth, the flying sandwich story was pure gold. I have a story myself. There was one kid in our class and he always had sweaty ass armpits and smelled like onions. We were in 4th or 5th grade, so right before winter break, our teachers would make us play Secret Santa and we all agreed to buy him a deodorant. He looked surprised to see like 10 gifts. Then when we started opening them, it was just hilarious. Funny thing, after winter break, he never smelled like shit again. Another good one was freshman year. This girl from our class got fooled by some friends that pretended to be seniors from this all-guys school, and bitches from our school loved guys from there. So this kid Mike invested a few months of his life fooling this bitch for the ultimate humiliation. He gained her trust somehow and managed to get her to send him like 20 naked pics. She was hot. So when Mike gets these pics, he can't believe this shit and calls all of us and lets us know his mission had finally paid off. The bastard printed like 200 copies of the pictures and posted them all over the bathrooms in the school and put them in different random lockers. The whole next day, the whole school had a picture in their hand, and the pics had also spread like wildfire on MySpace and through text messages. Ah, I love technology. So this girl was so embarrassed, her parents took her out of school a week after the incident. She was forced to go to school until she left. LOL, asshole ass parents. Now she's still fine as fuck, but I'm sure she will never send naked pics to anyone. Pneumothorax adds, I was bullied all the time for playing the flute in middle school and high school. This was around the time that movie American Pie came out, so everyone asked me, hey, do you go to band camp? You don't have a pussy, so do you shove your flute up your ass? Herder. And my band teacher was totally homophobic. I wanted to be in color guard, and he wouldn't let any guys in color guard, which was stupid because I was better than most of the girls. And he made me switch to play saxophone and quit flute. He didn't want guys playing the flute either, which was stupid because I was the best flute player there. Why do people do that? Aina Nyatrib. Okay, this next person has spelled their name backwards as their avatar name, and their real name is Brittany Ann. And Brittany Ann writes, God, I fucking hated that. American Pie made playing flute/piccolo in the band a really ridiculous experience. It got old after that first time, yet they continued to joke for years. LOL, I'm so funny. I bet no one ever said that to you before. We didn't even go to band camp. Our quote-unquote band camp was a week of practicing the marching routines at our high school before class started back up. I don't feel your pain, but I can somewhat relate. I wanted to play the trombone, but my teacher refused to allow that because, quote-unquote, girls don't play the trombone in my band. I wasn't a bully, and I didn't get bullied. I guess I could tell you stories where I witnessed people getting bullied, but that wouldn't be nearly as fun. Mysterio adds, there was this one kid that was an asshole to a lot of people. He used to bully me and others as well. He was super rich. His dad was an investor, like 40 mil or something like that he had. Anyways, his dad went to jail for fraud and he lost all his money. After that, he was not an asshole and a pretty good guy. For our warm-up in gym class, we would always shoot basketballs. They were kept in a large wooden box with a lid that could not stay up until someone held it. This one guy who nobody liked held it, and everyone was throwing basketballs at him. The teacher came and gave us a speech saying, "Whoever picks on Jim is a coward." And Bonsai writes, "I bet that made Jim feel like such a winner." OG Buddha writes, "I had friends that bullied kids nonstop. I was always the one telling them to calm the fuck down, leave that kid alone, and come smoke a bowl with me. However, when I was 12 years old, a group of high school kids rode past me on their bikes, and one spit on me. I called him a faggot-ass bitch, and they wheeled around and surrounded me. The biggest one asked me what I said, and I pointed to the small guy that spit on me, and I called him a faggot-ass bitch. After that, the small kid tried to hit me, but he missed. Before I knew it, some other kid that was behind me nailed me in the back of the head, and I went down. They started laughing and noticed I had a nice watch on. They told me to give it to them and they would leave me alone. At first I considered it, but it was a present from my grandpa, so I told them to fuck off. Out of the 40 or so punches they threw at me, about 6 connected weakly before I raged and kicked one of them really good in the nose, and there was blood everywhere. After that, they got off me and decided to go. I'll never forget the last thing the biggest guy said to me though. He said, "Stay real, faggot." In my head I was thinking, these 7 douchebag high schoolers couldn't even steal a watch from a 12-year-old, and they're telling me to stay real. Digital Viper writes, "High school was FTL. It's either you are rich or you are a fucking loser. But most of the rich kids have HIV since they all fucked each other." So stupid. Okay. "But most of the rich kids have HIV since they all fucked each other in my school, and nothing bunch of hardcore drug users. No one really bullied me because I was in football and I am a built person. And I never really bullied someone till I started going to auto shop where this dumb fucking Mexican talks all shit and does nothing about it. Even the other Mexicans hated this prick, so don't be calling me a racist because I'm not. It's just this kid kept talking about how fast his Ferrari is, but never brought it in to prove he had one. So I kept fucking with him and shit." Bifkin adds, "When I was in 5th grade, there was this fat, irritating cunt everyone called Mount Fuji. Fucking everyone called this bitch that name. But she decided to single me out and tell on me. It sucked because I didn't even make up the name or make fun of her that much compared to some of my asshole buddies. Anyway, her parents called my parents and I got bitched at and couldn't play Nintendo for a week or some shit like that. Well, this amorphous blob of goo ended up transferring to another school after that year, and I didn't see her for a long time. The next time I had an unfortunate experience of seeing her again was at a party my friend had several summers ago. Some fat bitch was squealing about how someone was drinking all her beer that she had specially put aside. Someone ended up pointing her in my direction because I was the one swilling her precious goddamn beer. She starts to run her overused mouth, and about halfway through her rant, she said, 'You're Bifkin. That guy used to make fun of me in grade school and call me Mount Fuji, right?' I was like, LOL, yup." She goes and gets her equally fat boyfriend and tells him that he needs to kick my ass. But I know the guy. We break each other's balls all the time and drink beers and get stoned. He tells her that he isn't going to do shit because he's friends with me. She storms out of the place in an obese rage, and I ended up drinking the rest of her beers. On a side note, her boyfriend, the fat guy I know, has the initials HD. So me and my other buddy would refer to him as Hurry Diner. Good times. RJM writes, "I was bullied some in late elementary and junior high. Once I got glasses, suddenly I went from cool kid to nerd. I was beat up once when I was 12 by some gangbanger that was at least 2 years older than me. In junior high, we moved from California to Washington, and I had some kids seeing me as the new kid calling me nerd. One time I heard someone say, 'What's up, nerd?' I turned around and punched him in the chest. Turned out it was my locker mate, and he was just playing with me. He was pretty surprised, and despite the fact that he was on the football team as a linebacker, he didn't tackle me. We just shrugged it off. One Mexican dude that called himself Vato, even though no one in Washington even knew what a real Vato was, got pissed at me for a prank I played on him and punched me. I turned and faced him down. I was a few inches taller. Everyone gathered waiting for a fight, but I didn't swing, and neither did he. He backed down after that and never looked at me in the eye again. He was supposedly a bully, but he wouldn't fight the nerd. I guess he thought I was a coward, but he was the coward. At another school that year, back home in California, we were playing basketball in PE, and I was putting a lot of pressure on this Samoan dude, and he was getting pissed. Everyone was afraid to give him defense, so me being the nerd I am, I said, fuck it. I'm tall and he's not that great. Everyone thought he was the shit because he was the oldest one at school. He was 16 and drove to school. Yes, junior high school. So I stopped his scoring streak, and while I was running down the court, I hear someone shout, "Look out!" just as I get shoved to the asphalt. He said something to me about not giving him cigarettes a few days ago. I really didn't smoke, but he didn't believe me. I just dusted off and kept playing. I wasn't going to fight him because he could probably kick my ass. TLDR, stick up for yourself and they won't bother you that bad. If you're an easy target, they won't stop. And Fender ads. I got fucked with some in middle school, but I wouldn't call it being bullied. The school was run by large Mexican gangs. Shit was like GTA, LOL. Everybody got fucked with by them eventually. They would practically make shit up about how one of my friends was plotting against them just so they could have an excuse to fight him. And sometimes they would have mutinies within the large Mexican forces and end up fighting each other, like 5-on-5 in the middle of the hallway. Pretty intense for 7th grade. I got fucked with for a short while, like in 5th grade, as well by more Mexicans. Some ugly Mexican chick had a huge crush on me, and I pretty much just ignored her. Don't even think she spoke English. Well, her brother was this big bastard who could easily beat the shit out of me, and every day, for like 3 or 4 days, he would chase me the whole time we were outside for recess, like 30 minutes or so. But he was legally blind, so he could only see me like 50 feet or so in front of him, and he was slow as fuck. So I would just outrun until he couldn't see me and hide. Then his friends would follow him and try to point him in the right direction. My friends thought this shit was hilarious. So did the poor blind guy's friends. The whole thing was really sad. He did it for almost a week, and everyone just kinda laughed at him. Poor big blind bastard just wanted to defend his sister's honor. LOL. I tried to calm him down sometimes, but I don't think he spoke good English either. He just started swinging at me. I never picked on people, but a few of my friends did sometimes. I always thought it was fucked up, but it was pretty funny on occasion. There was one kid in middle school that my friend always chased in the hallway, and one day he was chasing him. The kid ran up to a teacher and told her my friend was trying to touch his penis. Oh, that's funny. She flipped. I'll never forget that shit. I'm not sure if this story is true. Ghostmaker ads. In junior high, I was eating lunch next to a kid who was generally considered a loser. He got picked on every day. A bully tapped me on the shoulder, pointed to the loser, and said to look down at what was going on. The loser was sitting in such a way that his ass was hanging out of his pants, and behind him, the bully and his friends were gently placing nacho chips between the kid's bare ass and his pants, and he didn't even notice. Then, when they got a good number of chips in his pants, they poured cheese in and shouted nachos as they pushed him to the floor, held him, and started eating them. Well, that is an unfortunate story. And Mushy 2008 writes, I don't believe that. And Rorschach adds, oh man. This one time I was walking to my buddy's house. He lived in a flat, so I was just about to enter the door to the building when this kid who was like 2 years older than me comes over and is all, hey Ryan, I heard you keep calling me gay. Total bullshit. And I was like, what? That's a complete lie. Just ask Craig, the kid I was going to see. And he's like, oh yeah, Craig was the one who told me. At that point, I knew he was just making this up so he could kick my ass. I'm like, well, ask Mike. He lives there too. We can stop on the way to Craig's. And he's like, yeah, Mike was saying you said it too. And I'm like, shit, this guy has a flawless technique. And I knew I couldn't talk my way out of an ass kicking. Luckily, I was quite small for my age and could squeeze through gaps that other kids couldn't. I was also amazingly fast. I run through the door of the building, straight around the ground floor, and exit out the back door, with this guy chasing me. Now the building is on a hill, and the yard area in the back has steps going down with garages there. So I'm like, shit, I'm gonna have to pull out some tricks for this motherfucker. I run towards the steps, jump and clear the first set, about 8 steps, and hit the railing, then squeeze through the bars of the railing onto the roof of the garage and pull up some free running shit as I run along this very narrow wall between the other garage. I could have fallen off either side about 15 feet onto concrete. So I get to the roof of the second garage, and I know there's a grassy slope there, so I jump straight off the edge without hesitation and break the fall with an awesome roll. I turn around and see he's just staring in disbelief from the steps, so I give him the finger and sprint all the way down the hill, past my school and into my street. Back in time for dinner like a fucking boss. It was cottage pie. Shit was V-cash. And finally from this thread, although it goes on for several more pages, 031591K writes, I'll never forget Jake. He bullied me from grade 3 till grade 7. He was very popular and very stupid. He convinced 90% of the school to ostracize me to a point where I would go out for recess and sit in a corner. Thankfully, I never got to the point where I would walk with the supervising teachers. That was for total losers. Anyway, after 5 years of torment, I was leaving school one day and his buddies were on top of the jungle gym. He was straddling the monkey bars. He started with the ever clever, hey faggot. And since I had to walk by the jungle gym to go home, I simply ignored him and kept walking. My grandfather, whom I was very close with, was in the hospital literally less than a week away from dying, and the cunt says, Shouldn't you be with your grandpappy? I heard you were going to come out to him minutes before he wastes away. I fucking snapped. I mentioned before he was straddling the monkey bars. Well, for a small kid of 150 pounds or so, I caused a lot of testicular damage by grabbing onto his legs and pulling down as hard as I could while his groin mashed against the pole. He was away from school for about a week, and when he came back, he had to wear an athletic cup for a month or so to prevent further damage. He never bothered me again, though. Truly a triumph story. You hear that, nerds? Nerds and faggots, pussies, wimps. I have nothing but disdain for you. Oh, I wish you were here. I just fucking wet willy all you. But, luckily, I'm just giving you a wet willy in audio form in this podcast. Okay, well that's going to do it for this episode of Lou Reads the Internet for You. Maybe you're feeling a bit shortchanged. I'm sorry. I've let you down. Please don't bully me. You know, I'll have to admit, I was expecting less from the Ebaum Nation Forums, but that's my prejudice, I suppose. It wasn't that bad after all, was it? Some real triumphs and tribulations of being a nerd before they emancipated themselves into college, where bullying is less prevalent. I will take a moment to thank the Ebaum Nation Forum members, whatever they call themselves, EBNFMs, and for sharing their lovely stories of bullying and being bullied. Maybe you've learned something. You've learned not to be a bully, or learned how to stick up for yourself, or how to take getting a sandwich thrown at your head in stride. That's a valuable lesson I think we can all learn and appreciate. I want to thank everyone who has written a review on the iTunes store. Feel free, if you haven't, to take a moment to do so, because Lord knows, more people need to know about Lou Reads, and that's fantastic, terrible content. And if you do write a review, don't write anything nasty, because some people have actually sent me the reviews they've written and they never show up, and I think it's because they mention genitalia more specifically than the word genitalia. Yeah, so just watch out for that stuff. And please feel free to send me some more ideas for forums, because can never have enough leads for these damn things. I want to give a quick shout out to my friends over at the Comedy Nerds podcast. They had me over to watch the 30 Rock XXX a parody porn and discuss the comedy merits of the episode of pornography. And it was a lot of fun to do, and I think it was a pretty funny discussion we had afterwards, and I'll put a link up to that when it comes out, I believe, this coming Monday. So look for that on the blog or on the Facebook page. Yeah, that's about it for this week's episode of Lou Reads. Having a weekend beginning now. All right, thanks again for listening. So next episode is going to be about past life experiences. Maybe you're having deja vu about listening to this podcast in a previous life when it was delivered on parchment. Parchcast. My name's Lou. This has been Lou Reads the Internet for you. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.